This is the Model 150 airbrush from Badger. It's their bottle feed airbrush. It's become quite a classic in their range because it's so versatile, and it's a really tough workhorse. It's got a very strong following throughout the world as a reliable airbrush, and for a lot of people this is the only airbrush they use. As you can see, it's, as I said, it's bottle feed, so you can put a colour cup underneath it or various size paint jars. So it's useful for smaller work or larger murals if you want to. So what we'll do next is we'll just have a look at some of the technical details on this, and then we'll strip it down and put it back together again. As I said, this is a very versatile airbrush. There are 3 different head sizes available: fine, medium and heavy. So that'll give you anything from a pencil line, or rather hairline, to a wider spray pattern. So as I said, it's suitable for a variety of projects. Now, as you'll notice here, you've got a screw adjuster on the back here. That can actually almost change this into a single action airbrush if you like, because once you've got it set up, screwing this in will actually pull the trigger back slightly. So when you've got it set up to how you want it to spray, simply pushing down on the trigger will actually release the paint. So you've almost turned into a single action. So that really does make it quite versatile. There's no needle limiter on this, which it doesn't matter. I don't really think you need needle limiters on most airbrushes, to be honest. So yeah, it's a reliable workhorse. As I said, it's a classic. It's known throughout the world as a very versatile and reliable brush. So what we'll do now is we'll strip it down and then we'll put it back together again. Right, we'll strip this down now. So as always, we take the handle off. This is a very light aluminium handle, by the way. Okay, we're going to undo the needle chucking nut. As you see, I'll just press down on the trigger. Just takes everything away from the needle as you're withdrawing it. So that's the needle out. Now what I'm going to do here is I will take off the nut, but I'm going to remove this whole needle guide and spring assembly all in one. It just makes it easy to reassemble. So we'll undo that. I'm just going to press down on the trigger again, keep everything together, and then we're going to unscrew this whole thing out all in one go. There's quite a way to go, so it's a very fine thread. Okay, there you have it. That's the assembly. That's the trigger spring and the needle guide all in one unit. Okay, now we're just going to lift the trigger out, and this is the there you go, that's the, try and keep this in focus. That's the trigger lever, the back lever. As you can see, it's the wing design type, so that sits in the back of the trigger. So that's that section done. And what we'll do now is we'll move around to the front of the airbrush. Right, we'll move around to the front of the airbrush. We'll just take off the crown cap, or the nozzle cap. Again, this has got a very fine thread on it, so there we go. As you can see there, we've got the nozzle exposed. Now the next section is this whole assembly here. Now, prior to the video, I've actually just used this wrench to undo that. there's two flats on there for that. So this is actually finger tight now, just for video purposes. So we'll take that off, and there's a PTFE seal, head seal there. So that's the whole nozzle assembly there, rather than just having a tiny nozzle. It's all one piece. So that's the actual piece that you change as the head assembly, and everything just sits in the front of the airbrush there. So that's as far as you need to go, stripping everything down. I have got another video uploaded which shows how to remove the air valve assembly on all Badger airbrushes, so if you want to check that out, if you do want to get to that section. So that's as far as you need to go with the 150 so far. Okay, so we're going to put the nozzle section back in. So obviously round to the front of the airbrush. You can see where everything seats against there's a very fine thread inside the airbrush, and the PTFE seal sits against the front face here. So it's simply a case of carefully screwing it in. Make sure you don't get it cross-threaded. Now I'm just going to do this finger tight, but the best thing to probably do is just to nip it up with a wrench, just to make sure it's all seated correctly. Don't go too tight. You just nip it up, and it'll seat against the PTFE seal. Next off, got the nozzle cap. Finger tight again, and that's all set to go at the front. So we'll move on to the back of the airbrush. Right, I just wanted to run through this unit with you. This is the piece that I took out of the back of the airbrush that contains the trigger spring and the needle guide all in one. So here you've got obviously your needle chuck nut that I took off before, and here's your needle guide, which runs inside this body. You can see a flat on there that it's located inside the fat of the body, so just make sure that's assembled correctly. So basically we just pull that straight out. Inside here is the trigger spring, so best thing to do is actually to hook it out with that, and there you go, that's the trigger spring there. So I just want to explain that section. Just to put it back together again, you simply put the spring back in, put the adjuster back in, make sure you get your flats lined up, and put the needle chuck nut back on, and that's the assembly rebuilt basically. You can put all that back in one go. As I mentioned before, trigger spring adjustment is this, so you adjust that in or out to make it heavier or lighter. Right, so now we're just going to work on the back of the airbrush. First thing, easiest thing to do really, is put the back lever or the trigger lever into the body. So as you can see, there's a slot machined in the top of the body. Just to drop this straight in, just hook it down almost, and then just let it sit there. Then we'll drop the trigger in. Just drop it straight down, and you just feel it sit on the air valve spring. You know it's in the correct place then. Now if you just tilt the airbrush forward, the back lever just drops against the trigger there. Okay, so that's in place. Just keep the airbrush, you can hold the trigger down if you want with your finger. Just keep the airbrush in this position. And next I'm going to insert this assembly. I've put the needle chuck nut back on here, just to hold it all together. And it also makes sure that the flat is located in the flat of the needle guide. So that's all together there. I'm just going to screw it in. Now you screw this section in all the way until it comes to a stop against the back lever. Right, I think that's it. Yeah, that's nipped up against the back lever. Just operate that just to make sure everything's running smoothly, and that's that section in place okay. So what we'll do now is just going to press the trigger down. Just make sure the chuck nut's backed off sufficiently. I'm just going to insert the needle. Now we'll get so far and then you'll just feel it enter the seal, and that's it. Just pull it back a little bit and then just push it forward and it'll come to a stop against the nozzle. Don't go any further than that, that's sufficient. And then we just nip up the needle chuck, and that's all assembled. As I said, you can adjust the trigger tension with this adjuster here, and then we'll put the handle back on, and that's it. Let's check the trigger movement, make sure everything's free and smooth, and that's your 150 back together again. I just want to show you a little bit more detail the trigger adjuster. It is slotted for a screwdriver, but you don't need a screwdriver. Basically, you just pull the trigger back, and this will screw in and out just with your finger. It's very easy to do. You can see it going all the way in there. So as I said, you can sort of turn this airbrush into a single action airbrush if you want to, by pre-adjusting that screw. Okay, I just wanted to show you a close-up of the trigger spring assembly and how to adjust the trigger spring. So the adjuster is actually just there. You can just see me turning it, but I find it easy to get to if you just back off or even take off the chuck nut. That way you can get to a lot easier. I think this comes from the factory, all the way done up. So just try your trigger. If it's too tight, just back this off. So adjust that to your liking, and then just put the chuck nut back on again. And there you go, that's set. Handle back on. And you're all ready to go. So that's the Badger 150, classic airbrush from Badger, great all-rounder, suitable for anything from murals to really small projects. You can get different paint cups, different paint jars, 3 different head sizes. So just a great all-rounder and a versatile and reliable workhorse.